Welcome to It's Not What You Think with Mordy Levine, where we get to meet and talk to spiritual teachers from around the world. Our guests are from all walks of life, and we hear about how they got into spirituality, what motivates them to teach and do what they do, and how they navigate the world we all live in. This is episode 3, recorded on March 25th, 2021. My guest today is Mike Scozzari. I talk with Mike about how he got into spirituality and meditation in the 1960s in Miami Beach, his experiences with students who have a lot of stress, and what he would ask the Dalai Lama if he met him. It's Not What You Think podcast is available on all streaming platforms, so please like, comment, share, or subscribe on your favorite platform. That support is enough to continue to allow us to produce this show. Mike Scozzari can be contacted via his website, tsmforlife.com, TSM for life. His contact information can also be found in the description of this episode. Our interviews are with people who may have opinions different from yours or mine. So while we keep an open mind, just remember, it's not what you think. Mike Scozzari is an instructor trained and certified to teach TSM meditation and has been teaching meditation since 1972. I think that's before the Buddha, right? 1972. He completed a three-year teacher training course in Europe. 3 years, that's great. I think there are training courses now, you just go on the internet and you get it done like an hour or two. So you really wanted to learn it, I guess. Okay.
Why didn't you tell me that back in the 70s?
Right. That's right. To date, Mike personally trained over 5,500 students. He earned his bachelor's degree in creative intelligence in Europe, studied with some of India's greatest experts in human potential. You're chairman of and director of the Miami Meditation Center from 73 to 86, Palm Beach County Center, 89 to 99, and South Florida Center from 99 to the president. You worked as a tour coordinator for Deepak Chopra. Good guy, 1990 to 93. You're living in Deerfield Beach, and you travel, of course, throughout the United States and South America teaching meditation. Anyone wants to reach Mike or learn more about what he does, just go to his website, tsmforlife.com. That's TSM for life. Spell it out, tsmforlife.com. So, Mike, welcome.
Hey, Morty. Good to be here. Thanks for that introduction.
No, of course.
What are you doing tomorrow? I need someone to do that.
You need an introducer. You need like Ed McMahon, and you'll be Johnny Carson. So
you know what I do, and you do it. So you're in the circle of people who know.
Happy to introduce you. So do you remember the very first time you tried to meditate?
I sat in my apartment in Miami Beach and closed my eyes, and I looked at a picture of a guru, and I felt relaxed, but had lots of thoughts and didn't feel that I could do that on my own. There weren't any instructors. I had to travel to California to get my instruction.
So what motivated you to even sit there in front of a picture with a guru and close your eyes? Well,
the Beatles had taken meditation. They studied with Yogananda and a few other gurus. And it was in the air in the late 60s. There was a lot of conversation about meditation.
Right. Yeah. If it's good enough for Paul McCartney and John Lennon, then it's good enough for you.
My teacher who trained me, and he's from India, he told Paul McCartney, he said, "Let it be." Well, that was good advice. Right. But he made it into something else when he made it going.
Right.
All these gurus have one thing in common. They bring, everybody. Vivekananda came in 1890 to the West. Yogananda came in the 30s and 40s. They all bring this knowledge of inner life and how to contact it. So it's not a new message, but it was for those of us here in the Western world, in the United States in particular. So I was just intrigued with the message. It seemed to get my attention, I guess you could say.
Sure. No, I think you're right. It was in the air, of course, in the 60s. You probably don't remember, but I'll ask anyways. How did you get a hold of a picture of a guru in Miami Beach? Because it wasn't like there's all these, you weren't up in, Haight-Ashbury or New York.
They had a specialty store on Arthur Godfrey Road on Miami Beach, and they used to sell posters, wall posters. And I thought, these guys look very interesting. One of them was Swami Satchidananda, who I saw him on video. He was at Woodstock and a few other places. Again, it was in the air. And a lot of these teachers were out and about. And Dean Ornish and a few other people. Peter Mack studied with him. So I saw his pictures. That guy looks at, put that on the wall next to the Marx Brothers.
See what happens.
Yeah, see what happens.
See if I'm still here when I open my eyes. So do you remember, and I know we're going back 300 years to 1972, joking. Do you remember if you got any benefit from it the first time, or were you like, opened your eyes and go, okay, I'm doing something? I mean, what was your reaction?
Well, I went to an introductory talk on a summer break. I went to California and went up to Berkeley. And the founder of the organization, one of the gurus, he was giving a lecture, and I attended that, signed up, took the course. So that was 1968. And then I became a teacher in 72. And my first experience with meditation was boredom. And that was cleared up in the 4-lesson course. I learned it step by step, just like everybody else. Then I started to have much deeper experiences. I returned back to Miami, and I didn't have any connection with the center to have some follow-up. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have Skype and Zoom. But I managed to stick with it. And then I invited some teachers to come down and teach my friends. They came in from California. And that was great because now I had a chance to interact with people that knew a lot more than I did. And they could kind of guide me along to have the experience. My first experience was one of complete silence, inner contentment. And I was not attempting to solve any problems, but when I came out of meditation, I felt like I didn't have any. That attitude stayed with me, even within the first 2 months. That was a personal experience. I know we were going to talk about personal experiences.
No, that's great. I mean, it took me, I'm thinking probably 5 or 6 years before I had any benefit from meditation, because I didn't have instruction. I learned to meditate as part of a Japanese karate group, very traditional. So at the beginning of karate and after karate class, we'd sit there and meditate on our knees. It was brutal, but there was no instruction. It is typical Japanese Zen, no instructions. Just do. The guy would make a command in Japanese, and you close your eyes, and there was another command. A few minutes later, you open your eyes, you did karate, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, okay, am I doing it right? Am I doing it? Because I got no benefit other than a lot of pain.
Yeah, because that sitting without a back support on an uncomfortable, well, you're on your knees, so you're squishing your feet. That's a perfect posture for yoga exercise, but not for meditating.
Right. Maybe if I
to a Zen master.
Right. Maybe if I did it for hours and hours and just somehow figured out how to deal with the pain, I'm sure you get the benefit, but I didn't. And it wasn't until I got some specific instructions like what you did that I said, oh, this is what it's about. And I found the results to be, for me, once I reduced my expectations, to be very subtle. And once you can kind of, get that frequency of not what you're looking for or chasing, but to recognize it, that's when I think you could appreciate the benefits. I tell students that I've had, I don't teach anymore, but when I did teach, that's not true, I teach a little bit, that the benefits are there, whether you think you're benefiting or not, as long as you do it. I had 1,000 thoughts. I didn't benefit. Well, no. As long as you do it, then you get the benefits. So now I know what you teach is different than, for example, some people focus on concentration type of meditation. I know what you teach is different than that. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I wanted to comment on something you said a moment ago, too. I taught an attorney here in South Florida to meditate. He took the 4 lessons. And about 3-4 days later, he came back and we had the follow-up. And I said, have you benefited in any way? Do you notice any benefit? He goes, well, I've been forgetting to yell at my children, so I guess. He had 3 kids.
That's a testimonial.
Yeah, it's subtle, but it's also dramatic because he didn't realize that he felt better, but his kids noticed that he was more relaxed. And that's an internal change. change comes from within. So I would say that's the most important thing. The difference between the method I teach and other systems, this one doesn't involve any concentration or visualization. You don't have to engage the mind. And when you're not engaging the mind, its mind is free to wander. Most people say, well, my mind's wandering. How could I possibly settle and achieve meditation? Shouldn't I focus? Well, the mind wanders in the direction of greater charm. If there's something, a song on the radio or coming from somewhere, we listen to it. If we like it, we turn it off. We don't. The mind goes toward greater happiness. Now, when my eyes are closed and I'm not listening to anything external, and I'm just meditating in this way, the charm of deep relaxation and silence draws me in. So I really don't have to push the mind. One last example that might help clarify it. You wake up in the morning, you turn the radio on, and you hear a song, but maybe you're not paying too much attention to it. And 3-4 hours later, you're singing that song to yourself unknowingly. And it's such an automatic, natural thing. The subconscious mind is so powerful. We might not even like the song, but there it is. That way, thinking a thought, having that thought, specific song, is so natural. What if we could somehow take that ability we have and transfer it to meditation? Now we sit to meditate. We introduce the technique, the specific, you're taught how to do it, and you start to utilize this sound mantra that we call it, and that mantra kind of takes over, like the song did. It becomes more automatic. We're not asked to chase after it or pronounce it clearly or concentrate. There's a way to do it right and a way to do it wrong. And just a few days, 3-4 days practice, the person starts to become more expert and to start to get into that, the deeper level of meditation where all the thoughts are coming from. Without a thought, it's just pure silence. And that isn't necessarily the experience in every meditation, but it starts happening even from the first week.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
We can access the healing response through a variety of means, through thinking positive and also doing certain things in a regular way. Dr. Oz was quick to point out that if you walk 30 minutes a day, it'll create a healing benefit for your heart. So I thought it's a good idea. That was about 5 years ago. I never miss. I'm out there with my raincoat and feel a tremendous benefit from something like that. Actually, I've just increased my time to 45 minutes. So everything we do, it's a good exercise, and it's not taxing. You're out in the fresh air. Here in South Florida, we have pretty good weather most of the year. But if you were to spend time with your dog or your kids or your grandkids, whatever the case may be, that could be a healing. We have to look at the broader perspective where healing could encompass a variety of different things. We could do healing therapies. We go to the Chopra Center in San Diego and get his Panchakarma treatment. It's pretty expensive, but I believe in that. I think that works, at least for some. And I know that if you think negative thoughts and process how bad things are, we're in a pandemic right now, we can find from the evening news plenty of things to worry about, but we don't want to put our attention on that for the whole day. A little bit of news, television's off, then we go about our day. We take things incrementally. But my experience with meditation was that I come out of morning meditation. I do my morning routine. I'm done by about 8 a.m. I come out and I take my walk. I feel better. I feel more at ease. My energy level increases because we're not doing anything in a regular way to get rid of deep-rooted stress. That's where meditation comes in. I think everybody could benefit in terms of reducing stress. I just had a wealthy hedge fund, retired hedge fund guy take my course. And within 2 days, he said, I'll tell you one thing, I do feel relaxed. You know, it's a specific thing you do when you meditate, right? And you come out. If I quieten the thinking process and I stop obsessing on, I realize that my thoughts, I think you were pointing out how we think thousands of thoughts per day. That's what we need to transcend. We need to be able to accept the fact that thoughts are coming, not such a big deal when you accept it, and then learn to enjoy the silence behind all those thoughts. Or we could say, who is the thinker behind the thoughts? The thinker is thinking, but I am not my thoughts. I'm the one who's having the thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So we can make a conclusion intellectually. That's useful. Deepak Chopra has a beautiful quote. He said, I use emotions, but I don't allow emotions to use me. Well, how many people can succeed right now in applying that? That's where meditation comes in.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
You're able to apply it. It makes sense to you when you've finished 20, 30 minutes of meditation.
Oh,
I think you notice the same thing too when you're meditating.
That's beautiful. I like that quote. I'm going to use that. And I'll make sure to mention Deepak Chopra's name as well. So, it's interesting about the whole impact of meditation on, we'll call them physical ailments, is that's where, Western science has difficulty. Eastern science doesn't even bat an eye at it, no pun intended. But Western science, okay, the mind is the mind and the body is the body, and I don't know if one can impact the other. And I think one of the very, very first studies that was done in this country with meditation, it was a small sample size, was with lower back pain. And they had a small group, I'm guessing it was in the early 70s, small group of people. They meditated, their lower back pain got better. Another group of people didn't meditate, they did something else and they didn't get better. And I'm oversimplifying it. And and I've had students, I'm sure you have as well, people just walk around with a lot of stress. And guess what? A lot of physical stress can create back pain, lower back pain. So if you can release I'm oversimplifying the benefits of meditation now, but this is an easy way for, if I talk to a doctor, to kind of get them to agree that meditation can have some impact on your physical body. And now it's even common knowledge that, someone's stressed out, they have a heart condition, they have stress at work, any and every doctor in the United States will say, hey, you should meditate, or you should do something with your stress, because that is impacting your heart. Now, stress, isn't that in the mind? Well, yeah, that's in the mind, but guess what? It's also in the body. Yes. So, I think people are starting to see this connection more easily now than back in the day.
This mind-body connection is getting a lot more serious attention from the medical community, because they see patients, doctors see patients all day long, and they begin to realize, look at the pattern here. This person's a worrier. This person's tense. There's a connection between their behavior and their belief systems and their present state of health. And there's no denying it. A doctor, well, she wasn't a medical doctor. She worked at the NIH for 20 years, and she coined the term neuropeptides. Her name was Candace Pert. And she wrote an interesting book called The Molecules of Emotions. And she made a direct connection between thinking, how thoughts change 6 million times a second within us, these molecules, and that the neuropeptides bind to cell walls, and they're mediated by emotion. So when you're in a happy mood, you have happy cells. You don't have to read her book to get the gist of that, but she was able to provide a pretty good insight for the medical community. Actually, she was the first person to say mind-body system. She was asked by Bill Moyers. He had a talk show on public television. He said, but how can you separate you can separate the brain and what you're thinking from the body. She goes, not anymore. You have a thinking brain body. Mm-hmm. When you're thinking a thought, it's taking place in every cell. We've proven it scientifically. But that's to your point about the mind-body system.
Yeah. I mean, we've come a long way the last 30, 40 years. And I think the Dalai Lama has a lot to do with it. Just with him coming over or sending a lot of monks over, University of Wisconsin, I believe, and, and hooking them up to the MRI and the CAT scan and all this other stuff, and seeing what happens and seeing, the calmness, meditating on compassion. What does that do to the brain? Meditating on this, because these guys are, master meditators. So I think that's had a lot to do with convincing West, look at this impact. This is real. And of course, convincing the East that, hey, there's some value to some science as well, because we can prove stuff that prior to that, you only believed it because your teacher told you to.
That's right. If you can help a person sleep better and reduce uh, their intake of prescription meds for high blood pressure, these things are being looked at too. Behavior modification is one thing. You could seek the advice or counsel of a good therapist, a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm all for that. I have a network of people that I work with, and the counselor is there to say, "You're worrying too much. Don't worry. Come back and see me next Wednesday. And how have you been for these past 7 days?" I found I started to fall back on my worries. It wasn't enough for someone to point it out to you. But maybe if you see someone like the Dalai Lama, and this is my personal reaction, I love the guy. I don't know much about his work, but he carries that with him, that love, that insight. He practices what he talks about. And maybe it would be helpful for more people to reflect on those thoughts, those books he's written. He spoke here at Nova University about 4 or 5 years ago. So you get a chance to hear. This is the beauty of this time we're living in. There are these great enlightened beings on the planet who can bring us a little bit more insight. We can stand on their shoulders and say, well, I'd like what he has.
Right.
Selfish,
Right.
but
Yeah.
why not? We should be happy.
For
And
sure.
they're telling us the same thing. Don't worry, be happy. Meyer Baba said that in 1970. Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah.
Worry.
There's no limit on love or happiness. So yeah, if he's got it and we want it, that's great. There's plenty of it. So you have a lot of different types of students that you trained or taught over the years. I think in my intro I said 5,500 students.
Okay, yeah.
What is a typical baggage, we should say, that people come in with? Is there any one or two interesting stories that you have, success or failure? We don't always succeed, but something just to give us a flavor for what you interact with.
Well, everybody wants to reduce stress, especially now. And my phone's been ringing because people know that there's got to be a better way. Were we born to live and cope with stress, or can we release it and start to feel good and maybe change our perception? If there's a snake in the garden and you panic, it might be helpful if someone's nearby to point out that it's just a string. But in that moment, you think it's a snake, so you're overreacting. You get all this adrenaline, which you need if it's a real danger, but it's just a string. So we could say, let's change our perception, change what we think about. But I would advise someone, and students come to me for this reason, let's change what you think with. Let's get into a state of extremely deep silence and rest so the body can heal itself. And I would say that's probably the number one attraction for meditation for the people that I meet. They want to reduce stress. They want to sleep better. If you're putting the time in, you're going to be lying in bed for, what do we need as adults? A good 7 hours. But then they wake up tired. They're not getting deep enough. The stresses of the day are building up and they're preventing this deep rest that we need. So we get someone meditating, they start sleeping better. They start worrying less. People often say to me, I don't know if it's working, but I am worrying less. But that guilt, maybe I should be worrying.
Right.
Because now I'm irresponsible. It's a whole notion of Western work ethic that if I'm worrying, I'm responsible.
Yeah. I have all this extra capacity here that's now available. Maybe I should be putting worry back into that room because it's empty.
How can I be in the present when I'm worrying all the time?
Well, what's interesting about that is, in Buddhism, we talk about equanimity. You win $1 million, great, but you don't have to, you don't have to get overly excited. And then of course, if something not to your liking happens, you don't go down in the dumps either. And it's easy to say, but through, of course, training and a lot of meditation, that equanimity comes about. Together with that, however, sometimes we thrive on candy and sugar and that excitement and the ups and the downs. And when it's missing, life can feel boring.
I see your point. Yeah.
Now, boring can have a negative connotation if you choose to use the word boring in that way. But it doesn't have to be. The lack of, I don't want to say emotionality, the lack of the huge ups and the huge downs does not have to be a boring thing. It can be a pleasant, joyful, happy thing. But we're so used to, it's kind of like, I like the sugar analogy. Man, when you have that bite of, whatever that sugar is, and you tastes great, and you get addicted. And then if you want to break the addiction, you have to go through whatever 3, 5, 7 days of no sugar. And first few days, you're like, where's the sugar? But then eventually there's a calm, and then you realize, wow, I'm glad that I'm off that roller coaster.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, we get sort of conditioned, I guess, to believe that I need that thing. And without it, we feel a little bit alienated. So what are we putting back to take the place of that sugar or drug or behavior? Pain. People in pain sometimes seek more pain. They seek out people in pain, or they try to put them in pain so they can have a conversation. Eckhart Tolle is a great writer and thinker. He has done a lot to explain this point. He said, get out of the pain body. Learn to be happy for no reason. Create calm and contentment within. You can go there anytime you want. It's a permanent part of you. And if we know how to do that, that will help us disengage from those addictions. It's not enough to say, modify your behavior, stop eating candy, because you haven't taken care of the deeper problem. You haven't given anybody that contentment that will help you override that addiction, that connection. So when you're meditating, you disengage, right? For at least 20 minutes, I'm not eating candy, to use your metaphor, or doing something which is keeping me busy. I'm just content. And that stays with me during the day. Gee, I forgot to yell at my children, or I forgot to reach for that stimulant. There's a state of physiology, mind, body, comfort that gets maintained as we keep doing it. It's cumulative. So down the road, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, you start to realize I'm not my emotions or my thoughts. Mm-hmm. Who am I without those? Am I my emotions? Because if I am, I have to keep re-stimulating them. I taught a guy who was faced with an 8-year prison sentence for drug dealing, got him meditating, and he spent those years in prison in I don't know what they call it. It's a low offense prison where they have a lot more freedom. But he was meditating and reading, and I started mailing him books and things like that. It was like being on a retreat. When he got out, he was a different person, in that all those things he needed, his threshold for excitement was higher than most people I've ever met. And you figure, well, if he doesn't have those things in his life, then what? But he disengaged during those 8 years. And I had him meditating more than twice a day. We say twice a day, 20 minutes, but I had him meditating a lot more. What else is he doing? You may as well.
Right. No, time well spent, and very well spent. And there's obviously, we probably both know of a lot of programs out there going into prisons to teach meditation and see the transformation of folks. And a lot of folks, prison can be hell, but it doesn't have to be. Mm-hmm. If hell and heaven are in your mind. But getting back to, replacement, when you've reduced that roller coaster of emotions and you want to, quote, replace it with something, or you can look within and find contentment, I think sometimes that's very subtle. Some people can do that. What I do in those cases, I just go to the present moment. I don't run around, okay, let me go find something to read. Let me go find something to fill my time. If I want to read, I read. If I don't want to read, but that's just more stuff to put in the closet, healthier than the roller coaster of emotions. But there's also just observing, being in the present. There's no reason to say that a meditation or being in the moment only takes place when you're on the cushion and you close your eyes for 20 minutes twice a day. You can also, spend your time just observing, being right here, right now. And that works.
It's a beautiful strategy where you spend a little time within, and then we spend the rest of our day outside, and the outer reflects the inner. We start seeking more of the abundance we knew within. I think when you and I did our quick review the other day, I was telling you about a student who has everything. She has a beautiful new Rolls Royce, an oceanfront condo. And she told me after just 2 weeks of meditating, I came to see her for the follow-up. She was referred by a friend of mine, and she was looking out at the ocean. She goes, I can't really put to words how I've been feeling during the day. When I look at the ocean, I get a feeling of fullness in the moment. It is wonderful. I've heard about it, but I've never experienced it in my life. Do you think it's the meditation? I said, well, what else have you been doing for the last 2 weeks?
Right.
Meditating twice a day. So I'd say that was a good, and she had me teach her CEO. She's got a little company and 4 other staff workers at her facility.
Great. That's wonderful. Yeah. Those are the best students when you get, referred to people, because now they're not going in there blind. They know that their boss or their cousin or their sister had a great experience. Yeah. Yeah. So the Dalai Lama, as you know, was supposed to join us today for this podcast, but he couldn't fly from India here. So if you had one question for the Dalai Lama or one comment, what would it be?
How can we reduce suffering in the world more quickly?
More quickly, yeah.
And I would take his instruction. I'd want to be part of that, because I know if I could help in that effort, the good effect on me, it would be very satisfying, because I see far too much suffering in the world today. I think that would probably be my question. I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm putting you on the spot, but you've thought about this because it was your question. So what would you ask? Or maybe you have. Have you met the Dalai Lama?
I've been in the same room with him a number of times. And what is incredible to me, well, it's kind of obvious at this point, is when he walks into the room, the whole aura, I hate to use new age words, but the whole aura of the room changes. There's a huge shift in energy. He walks in and people who non-religious, non-followers, all of a sudden you just kind of see tears, even myself, streaming down their eyes, because there's this incredible feeling. And, it's very inspiring that is possible, because otherwise we're just dealing with the mundane, and it's easy to forget that world and that feeling, but he lives in that.
He lives in it. Isn't that beautiful? And we're fortunate to be able to have that contrast of feeling. The feeling level, I think, is more connected to who we are than the intellect. The intellect, we get in our own way with our intellect.
Yeah.
But the feeling, the emotions, even beyond the emotion, that finer level, when you're sitting to meditate and you start to transcend and the mind becomes less active, less worried, you're disengaging, the surroundings are less. And then when you reach that inner quietness, you realize that's what connects us all. I think it's safe to say that consciousness is the same in everyone. But to a certain degree, I've uncovered it for myself. You've uncovered it. Everybody should be able to at least have this experience of self beyond all the meanings we give it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's an experience. If I tell you, I'll meet you at the corner of 5th and 3rd Avenue, and you say to me, oh yeah, there's a CVS pharmacy on that corner, and it looks like, and you might remember a store, and I said, I don't even remember seeing that. But it's still the same location. We bring our own individual descriptions to the table, but and we arrive there. We know exactly where it is, but everybody has their own little perceptual reality. And if we could reach a state of common ground where there's no fear, I think that would take care of, I think society would recover tomorrow, because fear is not love. It's the opposite. And if I am in fear and I could disengage from that even for a little while and experience that totality, what's that going to do to my fear when I come out of that state? Will I look at fear the same way? I doubt it. I mean, of the students I've taught, not everybody sticks with it. We want everybody to. And I try to give follow-ups, and we do a number of things to keep people meditating, because that's the goal, just keep them meditating. And after they've done it for a period of time, they realize, hey, this could be valuable for other people. You know, my family, I know someone who is too obsessive about something, and they tend to worry unnecessarily. And I tell them not to worry, and they can't stop. But even those changes that you attempt on a behavioral level, they're not strong enough. They don't really get to the core of the problem. If I tell you the room is dark, and you say, well, just put the lights on. Let's not analyze the dark room. Why would you want to do that? Did you pay your electric bill? Put the lights on. We have the comfort of modern living. Now we know the potential for darkness is there. We can just turn the lights out. But then we'll have to stumble around and deal with reality from that level of consciousness. But I put the lights on, then I don't even have to think about it. You know, you get up in the morning, you meditate, you do your daily routine, your exercise, if you exercise, have a bite to eat, and you begin your day. And you've done something, but maybe on a cold day, you put on a green coat. You don't have to remember you have the coat on. You know, you say, oh, this coat will keep me warm. If only I remember it.
Right. No, that's good. Great analogies. I'm gonna use those.
Oh, by all means. Glad you like it.
Great. No, thank you. So, Mike Scozzari, thank you so much for being with me today. It's been a wonderful, pure joy.
Thanks,
Thank
Mordy.
you for sharing your experience with us, and let's definitely, as usual, stay in touch. It's been a while.
And if they want to go to the website, it's tsmforlife.com. And there's about a 35-minute YouTube lecture on how this meditation works.
Great. So tsmforlife.com. Mike Scozzari. Great. Master teacher. Okay, Mike. Have a good day. Stay safe.
Thank you very much.
Take care. I hope you enjoyed our talk with Mike Scozzari. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the It's Not What You Think podcast. That really helps us to continue to produce these episodes and invite other guests from around the world. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or would like to hear any specific guests on the podcast, please share my email, mordylevine@gmail.com, or visit mordylevine.com. Remember, it's not what you think.